Well, I'm studying abroad in Amman, in Jordan right now, and for my politics class, my professor took us up to his community, which is on the border right next to Syria. He has about 50 Syrian families living in his community, and one of them that we visited, there were about 9 people living in a small house that only had 3 rooms, and the father was talking about how the rent prices were increasing and he was having trouble finding a job. And so we asked, okay, so how are you going to pay for rent this month then? And he just paused and said, that's, I don't know. Like, that's the hardest question you could have asked me. And so this isn't just a problem for his family. This is a problem that tons of families are facing. There's almost 500,000 Syrian refugees in Jordan right now. And the country only has 6 million people, and Jordanians already are struggling with unemployment themselves. So the refugees are having a lot of trouble finding jobs, and the UN is trying to help them out, but the UN only got 30% of the funding that they asked for this crisis. And they're threatening to cut back on funding to families, which just can't happen. That's insane. There's expected to be 1.2 million Syrian refugees in Jordan by the end of this year. And there's no one that can employ them. It's just a really big problem. And a lot of them and the Jordanian government have been talking about how they feel very abandoned by the international community and they don't know how they're going to handle this burden on their own. And so myself and a group of people from our study abroad program decided we wanted to try and do something about it. So we knew that there would be people at home that would want to help and would want to find a way to work with people here who have been put into this horrible situation by the violence going on in Syria. And so we decided we wanted to do some sort of project to bring aid to some of the refugees. We thought about doing typical handouts like giving food, doing money handouts to families, or giving mattresses, clothing, things that people needed. But we also realized that this problem is not going to go away for a while. Hopefully the violence will stop soon in Syria, but even if that happens, so much is just destroyed and that a lot of families are going to have to stay. So we wanted to try and find a more sustainable solution to the problem. So we kind of came up with the idea to do a small social business. So say we're able to raise our goal of $4,000 from home and from people that we know. We would use that money to start a small business, and then the profit that the women or anyone, the Syrian refugees, would make off of that, they would get to keep, and then hopefully they would keep building on that money. So ultimately $4,000 could turn into $8,000 or $12,000, or at least just be sustainable income for families. Well, once we came up with that idea, we wanted to try and find people in Jordan to cooperate with, or at least people who have more knowledge than a bunch of undergrads have on doing sustainable businesses. So I found a cooperative called Hands of the Badia that works in a small rural community in the north of Jordan, about 2 kilometers from Syria. And they have already been trying to do small projects like this for a couple years, but they lack funding to do most of them. So I went to them with an idea of doing a cooperative between the local Jordanians they were already working with, and then the Syrians who have come in increasing numbers to their community and who are having trouble finding jobs. So they were interested in that idea. And I went with another woman from my study abroad program who's also interested, who's going to be helping with this project as well. And we went and visited a group of about 20 women, both local Jordanians and Syrian refugees in the community. And they were excited about the idea. They were eager to work with us and to try and find a way to bring sustainable income to their families. And so they came up with a bunch of ideas with different projects they wanted to do, and they narrowed it down to doing the 2 projects that we'll be doing. One of them is making sun-dried tomatoes, and actually the person who's in charge of this cooperative, who started this cooperative, did a project like this in the past. And so they know there's a market for these in Jordan, and they know that they have all the necessary skills to make them. They just need the startup money to run the project and then to market and sell them. So they're going to be making sun-dried tomatoes, which we'll be selling in Jordan. And then they'll also be making traditional Bedouin rugs. And there's not a market for that in Jordan. So even though they have these skills, and this is actually a craft that a lot of the older Jordanian women have, but that they haven't passed on to the younger women, but they're interested in doing that. But there's not a market to sell those rugs in Jordan. So I'm going to try and sell those in the US. And so that will be the second part of the project.
So why are you coming to us?
Well, this ability to start this project depends entirely on you, or people like you who are willing to support it. So every dollar raised means that many more raw materials can be purchased, which means that many more goods can be produced, and that many more sold, which means that much more profit can go to these families and the women who produce them.